The letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. No return address, postmarked from Richmond. Just a plain white envelope sitting in my mailbox between an electric bill and a catalog for garden supplies. I almost threw it away. Inside was a single sheet of white paper. One sentence, typed in plain black font. Your nephew killed a man. Ask him about October 14th.
I read it 3 times. My hands didn't shake. 30 years in military intelligence had trained that out of me. But my mind was already working. October 14th, 18 months ago. What was Jerry doing that night? I stood in my driveway in McLean, Virginia, holding that letter, and I felt something I hadn't felt since my last deployment. That cold, sharp focus that comes when you realize you're in enemy territory, when you realize someone is watching you, when you realize everything you thought you knew might be wrong. Gerald Hartwell, Jerry, my cousin, my dead brother's only son, the boy I'd watched grow up, the man I'd welcomed into my home, the nephew who called every Sunday and remembered every anniversary, the closest thing to a son Dottie and I ever had. A murderer. That letter was the first thread. When I pulled it, the whole tapestry unraveled. Not just what Jerry had done to that man in Charlottesville, but what he was doing to me right now, to my wife, to everything I'd built. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, you need to understand how a kid from a coal town in West Virginia ended up running intelligence operations in 3 war zones, and why a stranger would send me a letter about my own nephew. Now, before I go any further, I want you to hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you, it could happen to anyone. It could happen to you, and I don't want you to miss the warning signs I missed. My name is Raymond Hartwell. People call me Ray. I'm 73 years old, and I spent 30 years serving my country in ways I still can't fully discuss. I grew up in a 2-room house in McDowell County, West Virginia, coal country. My father worked the mines until his lungs gave out. My mother took in laundry and cleaned houses for the families who owned the mines. We didn't have much, but we had rules. You work hard, you tell the truth, you protect your family, and you never ever betray the people who trust you. I enlisted in the Army the day after I graduated high school. It was 1969, and Vietnam was calling. I was 17 years old, scared as hell, and absolutely certain I was doing the right thing. Basic training at Fort Benning, then Fort Huachka for intelligence school. Turned out I had a gift for it, for watching, listening, connecting dots that other people missed. If I had known then what Jerry was telling my wife every time I left the house, I would have acted faster. I would have protected her sooner. But I didn't know. Not yet. I spent 30 years in military intelligence, 3 tours in Vietnam, operations in Central America during the 80s, Desert Storm, Bosnia, Afghanistan. I ran networks of informants in countries where the wrong word could get you killed. I briefed generals and cabinet secretaries. I retired as a colonel in 2001, 2 months before the towers fell. After the Army, I started Hartwell Security Solutions, defense contracting, intelligence analysis, threat assessment. We helped corporations and government agencies understand risks they couldn't see coming. I built that company from nothing, just me and a laptop in my garage, into a firm with 80 employees and contracts with the Department of Defense. I sold it in 2019 for $42 million. Not bad for a coal miner's son. But the money was never the point. The point was Dottie. I met Dorothy Collins in 1972 between deployments. She was a nurse at Walter Reed, tending to wounded soldiers, and she had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. I asked her to dinner 3 times before she said yes. We got married 6 months later in the hospital chapel with a borrowed ring and a justice of the peace. 51 years, that's how long we've been married. She waited for me through every deployment. She raised me up when the nightmares got bad. She built a home wherever the Army sent us, Fort Bragg, Fort Meade, Germany, Japan. She never complained. She never wavered. We tried to have children. Lord knows we tried. Dottie went through 2 miscarriages. We looked into adoption, but the timing was never right. I was always deploying, always gone. By the time I retired, it was too late. That childlessness left a hole in both of us, a space in our hearts that never quite filled. Jerry filled it. Now, stop. I need to explain something about trust, because what happened next only makes sense if you understand how a childless couple in their 70s comes to think of a nephew as a son, and how that love becomes a weapon. My younger brother, Thomas, died in 2014, heart attack at 62. We'd been close once, but life had separated us, different states, different lives. His son, Gerald, was the only family Thomas left behind. Jerry and I had barely spoken in years. He'd been estranged from Thomas, some falling out over money that I never fully understood. But after the funeral, Jerry reached out, said he wanted to reconnect.
Said losing his father made him realize how important family was. I was skeptical. Dottie wasn't. "He's your brother's boy, Ray," she said. "He's family. Give him a chance." So I did. Jerry started visiting regularly. He lived in Richmond, about 2 hours south, close enough for Sunday dinners, far enough to seem independent. He was charming, attentive. He remembered Dottie's birthday, brought flowers for no reason, fixed things around the house without being asked. He called me Uncle Ray with such warmth that I forgot to be suspicious. Within a year, he was like a son to us. Within 2 years, we added him to our will, 30% of the estate. It seemed right. Who else were we going to leave it to? Within 8 years, he was stealing from us. I just didn't know it yet. The letter changed everything. After I read it, I didn't tell anyone, not even Dottie. I needed to verify. I needed facts. In intelligence work, we call it source evaluation. You never act on a single piece of information, especially when it comes from an unknown source. But you also don't ignore it. I went to my study that night, closed the door, and sat in the dark for a long time. October 14th, 18 months ago. What did I know about that date? I pulled out my calendar, the old paper one Dottie gives me every Christmas because she knows I don't trust digital. October 14th, 2022, a Friday. I'd been at a board meeting in Washington that day. Dottie had been at her book club. And Jerry? Jerry had visited that weekend. I remembered now. He'd arrived late Saturday morning, said he'd been tied up with work on Friday. He seemed off, distracted, drank more than usual at dinner. At the time, I thought he was stressed about his job. Now I wondered. The next morning, I made a call to an old friend, Marcus Webb. We'd served together in Bosnia, and now he ran a private security firm in D.C., the kind of firm that could find information other people couldn't. "Ray Hartwell," Marcus said when he picked up. "Been a while, Colonel. You finally bored of retirement?" "I need a background check. Deep dive, everything you can find. Criminal history, financials, civil judgments, sealed records if you can get them." "Who's the target?" I paused. It felt like a betrayal just to say it. "My nephew, Gerald Hartwell." There was a piece of evidence I hadn't found yet. When I finally read it, 3 weeks later, everything made sense. The murder, the money, the escape plan. But that email almost cost me my marriage first. Marcus called me back 4 days later. "Ray," he said, and his voice was careful, "you're going to want to sit down for this." I was already sitting. "Go ahead." "Your nephew has a history. Sealed juvenile records from Henrico County, arson and theft when he was 16, dismissed fraud charges from 2008 in Pennsylvania, and a civil judgment from 2011. A former business partner named David Chen accused him of embezzling $40,000 from their restaurant venture. Chen won. Gerald never paid, still owes the money." I closed my eyes. What else? "His current finances are a mess. Credit cards maxed out, 2 mortgages on his house in Richmond. He's been living beyond his means for years, Ray, way beyond." "How far beyond?" "Best I can tell, he owes at least $300,000 to various creditors, and that's just what's on the books." $300,000 in debt, and he'd positioned himself as the devoted nephew of a multimillionaire. It wasn't hard to see the pattern. But Marcus wasn't done. "There's one more thing," he said. 18 months ago, there was a hit and run in Charlottesville. A man named Dennis Whitmore was killed in the parking lot of a gas station. Witness says it started as a road rage incident. Someone followed Whitmore, confronted him, shoved him. Whitmore fell and hit his head, died at the scene. My stomach tightened. They catch the guy? Not yet. But here's the thing, Ray. A witness just came forward, says the other driver was in a silver A6 with Virginia plates, damaged rear bumper. I didn't say anything. "Ray, are you still there?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I'm here." "Your nephew drives a silver A6, Virginia plates. I checked his DMV records. He had body work done on the rear bumper in November 2022, 1 month after the hit and run."
October 14th. The letter was right. Jerry killed a man. My hands were steady as I hung up the phone, but my mind was racing. Murder. That's what this was. Not a car accident, a confrontation that turned fatal. And Jerry had fled. He'd let a man die on the concrete and driven away. But why was someone telling me now? Why the anonymous letter? And more importantly, what did Jerry need money for so badly that he'd kill for it? The answer came 2 weeks later, in the form of a phone call I didn't expect. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Dottie was napping, and I was in my study, going through the files Marcus had sent me. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Mr. Hartwell, this is Terrence Okonkwo. I'm the IT security director at Dominion Wealth Management." Dominion Wealth. That was the firm handling my investment accounts. Had been for 15 years. "What can I do for you, Mr. Okonkwo?" "Sir, I need to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. In the past 18 months, have you authorized any wire transfers to accounts in Delaware or the Cayman Islands?" I went cold. "No," I said, "I have not." There was a pause on the other end. "That's what I was afraid of," he said. "Mr. Hartwell, I think you need to come into the office. There's something you need to see." I met Terrence Okonkwo the next morning at Dominion's offices in Tyson's Corner. He was a big man, former Marine, I could tell from the way he carried himself, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Thank you for coming, sir," he said. "I know this isn't easy." He led me to a conference room and closed the door. On the table was a thick folder. He slid it toward me. "Mr. Hartwell, over the past 18 months, there have been 14 wire transfers from your accounts totaling $1.4 million. The transfers went to 3 different shell companies, 2 in Delaware, 1 in the Caymans." I stared at him. "That's impossible. I didn't authorize any transfers." "I know." He opened the folder. "But someone did. Look at these authorization forms." I looked, and my heart stopped. The signature at the bottom of each form was Dottie's. My wife. My Dottie. She had signed away $1.4 million. "That's not possible," I said. My voice was hoarse. "Dottie would never—" "Mr. Hartwell," Terrence's voice was gentle but firm. "I did some digging. These authorizations were processed by a single associate at our firm, someone who's since left the company. All of them came through at times when you were traveling or otherwise unavailable, and all of them were accompanied by verbal confirmation from your wife." I thought about Dottie. Her memory had been slipping for the past 2 years. Nothing dramatic, just small things, forgetting appointments, repeating stories, losing track of conversations. The doctors called it mild cognitive impairment, not dementia, they assured us, just age. But enough for someone to exploit. "Mr. Okonkwo," I said slowly, "who had access to my wife during those times?" He met my eyes. I knew. God help me, I already knew. The detective said 4 words that stopped me cold. "We have a witness."
And suddenly I understood why Jerry needed the money so desperately, why he was willing to destroy me to get it. 2 days later, I drove to Charlottesville. The police station was a low brick building on Market Street. I asked to speak with Detective Angela Reyes, the investigator handling the Dennis Whitmore case. She was a small woman, mid-40s, with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. "Mr. Hartwell," she said after I introduced myself, "what brings a retired Army colonel to my office?" "I have information about your hit-and-run case, the one from October 14th, 2022. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her shoulders tighten. "Go on." I told her everything: the anonymous letter, the background check, Jerry's car, the bodywork on the rear bumper. I told her about the stolen money, the shell companies, the way he'd been exploiting my wife's memory issues. When I finished, Detective Reyes was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Hartwell," Detective Reyes said finally, "I'm going to tell you something that hasn't been released to the public. We have a witness, a woman who was in the parking lot that night. She was scared to come forward at first, but she finally did 3 months ago. And she described the other driver's vehicle in detail: silver Audi A6, Virginia plates, dented rear bumper." Reyes looked at me. "Your nephew's vehicle matches that description exactly." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "So, what happens now?" "Now we build our case. The witness can identify the car, but she couldn't see the driver's face. We need more before we can make an arrest."
She paused. "But if what you're telling me about the financial fraud is true, if he's planning to flee, we need to move faster." I nodded. "What can I do?" "Keep gathering evidence on the financial side. Document everything. And Mr. Hartwell?" She looked at me with something like respect. "Be careful. If Gerald Hartwell killed a man once, he won't hesitate to protect himself again." I drove home that night with a plan forming in my mind, an operation the way I used to plan them: objectives, assets, risks, contingencies. The objective was simple: expose Gerald Hartwell before he could destroy me or escape. The assets: Marcus Webb and his resources, Terence Okonkwo and his documentation, Detective Reyes and the police investigation, and my own 30 years of experience. The risks? Jerry didn't know I was on to him, but if he found out, he'd accelerate his plans. He'd take what he could and run, or worse. And there was one more risk, the biggest one of all: Dottie. She loved Jerry. She trusted him, and he had been working on her for months, maybe years, slowly turning me against me. If I moved too fast, if I confronted her without proof, she might not believe me. She might even warn Jerry. I had to be patient. I had to be careful. I had to be the intelligence officer I'd trained for 30 years to be. That night, I sat beside Dottie on the couch. She was watching a cooking show, laughing at something the host said. She looked so happy, so innocent. She had no idea what Jerry had done to her, to us. "Dottie," I said quietly. She turned to me. "Yes, honey?" I looked at her face, the face I'd loved for 51 years, and I made myself smile. "I love you," I said. "I just wanted you to know that." She squeezed my hand. "I love you too, Ray. Always have, always will." I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Dottie's soft breathing beside me. Somewhere out there, Jerry was planning his escape. He had $1.4 million of my money. He had my wife's trust. He had forged documents and shell companies and a dead man's ghost chasing him. And he had no idea that the old man he'd been stealing from was about to hunt him down. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. I was fighting a war on 2 fronts.
On one side, I was gathering evidence, working with Terrence, coordinating with Detective Reyes, building an airtight case. On the other side, I was watching my own wife slip away from me. It started small. Dottie became distant. She stopped meeting my eyes during conversations. She'd flinch slightly when I mentioned Jerry's name, then change the subject. Little things, easy to dismiss. Then it got worse. One evening, I came home from a meeting with Terrence and found Dottie in the kitchen, standing by the window, staring at nothing. "Honey," I said, "everything okay?" She turned to me, and there was something in her eyes I didn't recognize, something guarded, something afraid. "Gerald," she said quietly, "have you been feeling all right lately?" I frowned. "I feel fine. Why?" She hesitated. "Jerry was here today. He's worried about you. He says you've been acting strange, saying things that don't make sense, getting confused." My blood went cold. "Dottie, that's not true. I'm perfectly fine." "He said you accused him of stealing money." Her voice was small. "Ray, that doesn't sound like you. Jerry would never do something like that. He loves us." I wanted to grab her shoulders. I wanted to show her the wire transfer documents. I wanted to tell her everything. But I couldn't. Not yet. If I told her now, without absolute proof, she might not believe me. Worse, she might tell Jerry. And then he'd run, and I'd never get justice. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I lied to my wife. I said, "You're right. I've been under a lot of stress lately. The retirement party planning, all the travel. I probably just misremembered something. I'll talk to Jerry and apologize." Dottie's face relaxed. She came over and hugged me. "I'm so relieved, Ray. Really worried."
I held her tight and stared over her shoulder at the wall. Jerry had been visiting her while I was gone, whispering poison in her ear, turning her against me, and she didn't even know it. I'm telling you this because someone watching might be married to a Dottie, someone whose spouse is being slowly turned against them, who's watching their partner become a stranger. If that's you, listen carefully, because what Jerry did to my wife, he did in plain sight, and I almost didn't see it until it was too late. The manipulation escalated. Over the next 2 weeks, Jerry visited 3 more times, always when I was out, always for hours at a time. Each time, Dottie seemed more distant afterward, more confused, more convinced that something was wrong with me. She started hiding things from me. The checkbook disappeared from the drawer where we always kept it. Our joint credit card was misplaced. When I tried to log into our investment accounts, the passwords had been changed. "I thought it would be safer," Dottie said when I asked. "Jerry suggested we update security. He helped me pick new passwords." Jerry. Always Jerry. I was being locked out of my own finances, my own life, and my wife was helping, not because she wanted to hurt me, but because she trusted the wrong person. One night, I woke at 3 a.m. and found Dottie sitting at the kitchen table, crying. "Honey," I sat beside her, "what's wrong?" She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Ray, I'm so scared. Jerry says you might need professional help. He says there are places that can care for you, where you'd be safe." My heart cracked. She was talking about institutionalizing me. My own wife, the woman I'd loved for half a century, was considering putting me in a facility because Jerry had convinced her I was losing my mind. "Dottie," I said carefully, "has Jerry ever told you what he thinks is wrong with me, specifically?" She wiped her eyes. "He says you've been paranoid, accusing people of things they didn't do, forgetting conversations, getting angry for no reason." She paused. "He says it might be early dementia, like what I have." Jerry was using her own diagnosis against her, making her think that she and I were both declining, that they needed to take control before it was too late. I took Dottie's hands in mine. "I'm not sick," I said quietly. "I promise you. My mind is exactly where it's always been, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Just a little while longer." She searched my face. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the old Dottie, the sharp, perceptive woman I'd married, the one who could always tell when something wasn't right. "I trust you, Ray," she whispered. "I always have." But the next morning, she didn't remember the conversation. Meanwhile, I was making progress on the evidence front. Terrence had traced the shell companies in Delaware. They were registered to a lawyer in Wilmington who specialized in helping people hide assets offshore. The same lawyer had helped set up the Cayman Islands account, and, crucially, the registration documents contained a critical error. One of them listed Jerry's real email address instead of an alias. That email address was the key. In intelligence work, we call it a thread. You pull on it and the whole network unravels. And Jerry had made a mistake. He'd used his personal email to communicate with the lawyer, which meant there was a paper trail. But I needed access to that email, and that meant I needed help from someone inside Jerry's life. Her name was Carla Mendez. 28 years old, she'd been Jerry's personal assistant for 3 years, and according to Marcus Webb's research, she'd started looking for a new job 2 months ago. I approached her carefully, invited her for coffee at a cafe in Richmond where Jerry would never go. She was nervous when she arrived, kept looking over her shoulder, but she came anyway. "Mr. Hartwell," she said, "I don't know what this is about, but I can't afford to lose my job." "I understand," I said, "and I wouldn't have contacted you if it wasn't important. Carla, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Has Jerry asked you to do anything lately that made you uncomfortable?" She went pale. "Why do you ask?" "Because I think Jerry is in trouble, serious trouble, and I think you know more than you're saying." Carla stared at her coffee for a long time. "6 weeks ago," she said finally, "Jerry asked me to buy him a burner phone, paid cash. He said it was for a business matter and that I shouldn't mention it to anyone." "And?" "3 weeks ago, he asked me to research flights to Buenos Aires, one-way tickets. He wanted to know how much cash you could carry through customs without declaring it." My jaw tightened. Argentina. No extradition treaty with the United States for most financial crimes. Jerry was planning to run. "Carla," I said, "I need access to Jerry's backup email, the one he uses for personal matters. Can you help me?" She looked terrified. "Mr. Hartwell, if he finds out—" "He won't, I promise you. And when this is over, I'll make sure you're protected, but I need those emails. They're the last piece of the puzzle." Carla closed her eyes, and when she opened them, there was something resolved in her expression. "He leaves his laptop unlocked sometimes when he steps out for lunch. I can get you screenshots, but you have to promise me, when this goes down, I'm nowhere near it." "You have my word." 3 days later, Carla sent me 47 screenshots of emails from Jerry's backup account, and everything fell into place. There was an email chain with Victor Slade, the man Detective Reyes had identified as a person of interest in the Whitmore case, a fixer, a man who specialized in making problems disappear. In the emails, Jerry discussed the hit and run explicitly. He wrote about the October incident and the witness problem. He asked Victor about obtaining new identity documents. He negotiated a price, $500,000 for a complete package, new passport, new birth certificate, new social security number, safe passage to Argentina. $500,000. That's why he needed the money. That's why he was stealing from me. Not just greed, survival. But the most damning email was dated just 2 weeks ago. "The old man is almost done," Jerry wrote. "His wife is on board. Once he's declared incompetent, I'll have power of attorney over everything. I can liquidate the accounts, settle my debts, and be in Buenos Aires before anyone knows what happened. 3 months, tops." 3 months. That was his timeline.
And then I was served with a restraining order. My own wife had testified that I threatened Jerry. I was barred from my own home for 72 hours, and the retirement party, the event I'd planned for a year, was in 4 days. It happened on Wednesday afternoon. I was in my study, reviewing the email screenshots, when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a sheriff deputy holding a clipboard. "Raymond Hartwell?" "Yes?" He handed me a folded document. "Sir, you've been served with an emergency protective order. You're required to vacate this residence immediately and maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Gerald Hartwell and Dorothy Hartwell until a hearing can be scheduled." I stared at him. "Dorothy Hartwell is my wife." "I understand, sir, but she's listed as a protected party. According to the petition, you made threatening statements toward Gerald Hartwell in her presence, and she fears for both their safety." The world tilted. Dottie, my Dottie. She had signed something she was afraid of me? "This is a mistake. My wife has memory issues. She's been manipulated." "Sir, I'm not here to argue the case. I'm here to enforce the order. You have 1 hour to gather personal belongings. After that, you'll need to leave." I called my attorney, Colonel Patricia Hendricks, retired JAG lawyer, old friend from my Pentagon days, and told her what happened. "Ray, don't panic. This is a temporary order. It expires in 72 hours unless Jerry petitions for an extension. We'll fight it at the hearing." 72 hours, I said. "Pat, the retirement party is in 4 days. If I'm not there—" "You'll be there," she said firmly. "We'll have this thrown out before then. In the meantime, go to the beach house, stay out of sight. And Ray, keep gathering evidence. If this goes in front of a judge, I want to bury that little bastard." I packed a bag. I walked past Dottie, who was sitting in the living room with Jerry beside her. She wouldn't look at me. "Uncle Ray," Jerry said, his voice dripping with fake concern, "I'm so sorry it came to this. We just want you to get the help you need." I looked at him, looked right into his eyes, and I smiled. "I'll see you at the party, Jerry." His smile flickered, just for a second, but I saw it, the flash of uncertainty, the tiny crack in his confidence. He thought he'd won. He really did. They thought they had won. They really did. And I let them believe it, right up until the moment I walked into that room. Like this video, because what comes next, you don't want to miss it. I spent those 72 hours at the Outer Banks beach house, but I wasn't resting. I was coordinating. I called Detective Reyes. She confirmed that the witness identification, combined with the emails from Jerry's account, gave them enough for an arrest warrant. But she wanted to wait. If we take him at the retirement party, we can get him in front of witnesses, makes it harder for him to claim the arrest was fabricated or politically motivated.
I called Terrence Okonkwo. He prepared a complete financial report documenting every stolen dollar, dates, amounts, destinations. He would testify if needed. I called Carla Mendez. She was terrified, but she agreed to provide a sworn statement about Jerry's behavior, his burner phone, his Argentina research. I called Colonel Hendricks. She filed a motion to dismiss the restraining order based on evidence of manipulation and fraud. The hearing was scheduled for Monday morning, the day after the party. And I called Marcus Webb. I needed one more piece of the puzzle. "The fixer," I said. "Victor Slade. Where is he?" "Miami," Marcus said. "He's been laying low, but we tracked him to a condo in South Beach." "Why?" "Because I want the FBI to pick him up the same day Jerry goes down. I want the whole network to collapse at once." Marcus laughed. "You haven't lost a step, Ray. I'll make some calls." The Ritz-Carlton ballroom was set for 150 guests, black tie, senators, generals, former intelligence directors, and Jerry would be there, sitting at the family table, right next to my wife. He had no idea what I'd prepared. Saturday night, the night of my retirement party.
I arrived at 7 p.m., 3 hours before the main event. The restraining order had been challenged successfully. Judge Harrison took one look at the evidence of Dottie's cognitive impairment and Jerry's manipulation and threw out the petition pending a full hearing. I was a free man, and I had work to do. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, a stage at the front with a podium and a massive projection screen behind it. 150 chairs, each with a place card for generals, senators, defense contractors, old friends and colleagues. The family table was front and center. 6 seats. Me, Dottie, Jerry, and 3 of my closest relatives. My sister Martha, who had flown in from Florida, my brother William from Ohio, and Dottie's niece Jennifer. Martha and William didn't know the full story yet, neither did Jennifer, but they would. Everyone would. Detective Reyes arrived at 7:30 with 2 plainclothes officers. They positioned themselves near the exits, dressed like catering staff. No one would notice them until it was too late. Terrence Okonkwo arrived at 8, carrying a briefcase full of documentation. He sat at a table near the back, looking like just another guest. Colonel Hendricks arrived at 8:15, resplendent in a black evening gown. She gave me a nod. Everything was ready. At 9 p.m., the guests began arriving. I stood at the entrance, shaking hands, accepting congratulations. Generals I'd served under, senators I'd briefed, old colleagues from the agency, the Pentagon, Fort Meade. They all came to honor me. And then Jerry walked in. He was wearing a beautiful navy suit. He had his arm around Dottie, guiding her gently like a devoted caretaker. She was wearing the emerald dress I'd bought her for our 40th anniversary. She looked beautiful and confused and lost. Jerry saw me and smiled. "Uncle Ray," he said warmly, extending his hand. "So glad you're feeling better. Tonight is going to be wonderful." I shook his hand. "Yes," I said, "it certainly will be." Here's where 30 years of military intelligence training paid off. Here's where every document, every contact, every favor I'd ever earned came together into one perfect operation. And here's where Gerald Hartwell learned what happens when you try to outmaneuver a man who ran operations in 3 war zones. The dinner was excellent. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, a wine selection I didn't taste. I sat at the head of the family table, making small talk, watching Jerry perform his role as devoted nephew. He was good, I'll give him that. He laughed at the right moments. He touched Dottie's arm reassuringly. He told stories about how much I'd taught him, how grateful he was to be part of the family. The guests loved him. At 10:15, the MC, a retired general named Jack Morrison, took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor tonight to celebrate the career of one of the finest intelligence officers I've ever known. Colonel Raymond Hartwell served his country for 30 years in ways most of us will never fully understand. He built a company that protects American interests around the world, and he did it all with integrity, dedication, and an unwavering commitment to the truth." The audience applauded. I stood, walked to the stage, and shook Jack's hand. "Ray, the floor is yours."
I stepped to the podium. 150 faces looked up at me. My family, my friends, my colleagues, the people I'd spent my life serving alongside. And Jerry sitting front and center, smiling encouragingly. I took a breath. "Thank you, Jack. Thank you all for being here tonight. 54 years ago, I was a scared kid from West Virginia who enlisted in the Army because I didn't know what else to do with my life. I never imagined I'd end up here, surrounded by heroes, married to the love of my life, fortunate beyond anything I deserve." The audience smiled. Dottie dabbed at her eyes. "But tonight," I continued, "I'm not going to talk about my career. I'm going to talk about something else. Something that's been happening in my own home for the past 18 months. something that I couldn't ignore, something that, if I didn't act, would have destroyed everything I've built, including my marriage. The smiles in the audience faded. People shifted in their seats. Jerry's expression didn't change, but I saw his hand tighten on his water glass. 18 months ago, I said, someone began stealing from me. They used my wife's medical condition, her memory issues, to forge authorizations and transfer money to offshore accounts. $1.4 million. Gone. And I had no idea until a stranger contacted me with a warning. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I'm an intelligence officer, I continued, so I investigated, and what I found was worse than theft. What I found was a conspiracy involving forgery, fraud, elder abuse, and murder. The room went dead silent. I nodded to Terrence, who pressed a button on his phone. The projection screen behind me lit up. The first image, wire transfer receipts, dates, amounts, account numbers. These documents show 14 wire transfers from my accounts to shell companies in Delaware and the Cayman Islands. Each transfer was authorized by a form bearing my wife's signature. But my wife has mild cognitive impairment. She doesn't remember signing these forms because she was manipulated into signing them by someone she trusted. I clicked to the next slide, Jerry's emails to the offshore lawyer. These emails were recovered from the personal account of the man who orchestrated this theft. They discuss setting up shell companies, obtaining new identity documents, and planning an escape to Argentina. Jerry's face was pale now. He started to rise from his chair. "Uncle Ray, this is insane." "Sit down, Gerald." My voice was quiet, but it carried. Jerry sat. I clicked to the next slide. Jerry's emails about the hit and run. 18 months ago, a man named Dennis Whitmore was killed in a gas station parking lot in Charlottesville. The police never caught the driver, but I did. I read aloud from the email. "The October incident is under control. The witness is a problem, but Victor says he can handle it. Once I'm in Argentina, none of this will matter." I looked at Jerry. "Would you like to explain what the October incident was, Gerald?" Jerry's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Detective Reyes rose from her seat and walked toward the family table. The two plainclothes officers moved with her. "Gerald Hartwell, you're under arrest for vehicular manslaughter, fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Jerry jumped to his feet. "This is a setup. Uncle Ray has dementia. Ask anyone. He's paranoid. Dottie, tell him. Tell him I was trying to protect you." Every eye in the room turned to Dottie. My wife looked at Jerry. Then she looked at the screen, at the wire transfers, the emails, the evidence of his betrayal. And something shifted in her face. Something cleared. "I trusted you," she said softly. "I trusted you and you used me. You made me think my husband was sick. You made me sign things I didn't understand." Tears streamed down her face. "How could you, Jerry? We loved you. We loved you like a son." Jerry's composure shattered. "You owed me," he screamed. "Your brother, my father, died with nothing. You had everything. The money, the company, the perfect little life. You owed me." He lunged toward the exit. He didn't make it 3 steps. The officers had him on the ground before he could reach the door. Handcuffs clipped around his wrists. His face was pressed against the Ritz-Carlton's immaculate carpet. "Get off me. This is false arrest. I'll sue every one of you." Detective Reyes leaned down. "Mr. Hartwell, you can add resisting arrest to your charges if you'd like."
Jerry went limp. They hauled him to his feet.
150 people watched as Gerald Hartwell, devoted nephew, master manipulator, killer, was walked out of my retirement party in handcuffs. The ballroom was silent. I stepped away from the podium and walked to Dottie. She was still crying, her hands trembling. I knelt beside her chair and took her hands in mine. "Dottie," I said quietly, "I never stopped loving you, not for 1 second. He used your condition against you. He made you doubt yourself. He made you doubt me. But I knew, I always knew, that you would see the truth when it was right in front of you." She looked at me with those eyes I'd loved for 51 years. "I'm so sorry, Ray," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I doubted you." I kissed her forehead. "There's nothing to forgive. We're going to be okay. I promise you, we're going to be okay." Around us, the room slowly came back to life. Voices murmured, chairs scraped. Someone started clapping, slowly at first, then faster. I looked up. The entire room was on its feet. Generals, senators, old friends, all of them applauding, not for my career, for something more important, for the truth. The trial lasted 5 weeks. Gerald Hartwell was charged with vehicular manslaughter, fraud, elder financial abuse, forgery, and conspiracy. His defense attorney tried everything, claimed the emails were fabricated, claimed I had manipulated the investigation, even claimed that Dottie's testimony couldn't be trusted because of her memory issues. The jury didn't buy any of it. The video evidence from the gas station's security camera, footage Detective Reyes had been holding in reserve, showed Jerry's silver Audi pulling into the parking lot minutes before Dennis Whitmore's death. It showed him getting out of the car. It showed the confrontation. It showed the shove. It showed everything. Carla Mendez testified about the burner phone, the Argentina research, the strange behavior. Terrence Okonkwo testified about the wire transfers and shell companies. Detective Reyes presented the complete timeline of the hit-and-run investigation. And Dottie, my brave, beautiful Dottie, took the stand and described how Jerry had manipulated her, exploited her memory issues, and turned her against her own husband. She cried on the stand. So did I, watching from the gallery. But she got through it. She told the truth, and when she stepped down, she walked straight to me and put her hand on my cheek. "I should have believed you," she whispered. "You believe me now. That's all that matters." The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge, the Honorable Patricia Whitmore, no relation to the victim, looked at Jerry during sentencing and said something I'll never forget. "Mr. Hartwell, you had every opportunity to live an honest life. You were welcomed into a loving family. You were given trust, resources, and affection. And you repaid that trust with theft, manipulation, and murder. You exploited an elderly woman's medical condition to steal from the people who loved you. You killed a man in a moment of rage and spent 18 months trying to escape the consequences. The court finds no mitigating factors in your behavior, only calculated cruelty."
She sentenced him to 12 years in Virginia State Prison. Jerry screamed when the bailiffs took him away, called me a liar, called the judge corrupt, called Dottie a senile old woman who didn't know what she was saying. Nobody listened. The last time I saw Gerald Hartwell, he was being led out of the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, his wrists in shackles. He'll be 66 when he gets out, if he gets out. I don't think about him much anymore. Victor Slade, the fixer Jerry had been paying, was arrested in Miami 3 days after the retirement party. The FBI had been building a case against him for years, and the emails from Jerry's account gave them everything they needed. He pleaded guilty to multiple counts of extortion, identity fraud, and accessory after the fact to manslaughter. 8 years federal. As for the money, most of it was recovered.
The shell companies were dissolved, the offshore accounts were seized, and roughly $1.2 million was returned to our accounts. About $200,000 was unrecoverable, already spent on Victor, on lawyers, on the groundwork for an escape that never happened. I don't miss it. Money was never the point. The point was justice. The point was protecting my family. The point was proving that a 73-year-old man from coal country wasn't as easy a target as my nephew thought. I look at Dottie now, really look at her, and I see the girl I married 50 years ago, the one who waited for me through every deployment, the one who built this life with me. Jerry tried to take her from me. He almost succeeded, but we're still here, and we're not going anywhere. It's been 14 months since the retirement party. A lot has changed. Dottie is doing better. We found a specialist at Johns Hopkins who put her on a new treatment protocol for her cognitive impairment. It's not a cure. There is no cure, but it slowed the progression. She has more good days now than bad ones. She remembers most things, and on the days when she doesn't, I'm there to remind her. We sold the house in McLean. Too many memories, too many rooms where Jerry had whispered his poison. We moved full-time to the Outer Banks beach house. It's smaller, simpler, quieter, exactly what we need. Every morning I wake up at 5 a.m., old habits. I do my PT on the beach, push-ups, sit-ups, a 2-mile walk along the shore. The dogs come with me, Patton and Bradley, 2 rescue mutts we adopted from the shelter in Kill Devil Hills. They're terrible watchdogs and excellent companions. Dottie has her coffee ready when I get back. We sit on the deck and watch the sun come up over the Atlantic. We don't talk much. We don't need to. 51 years of marriage means you can say everything with silence. My sister Martha visits every few months. She and Dottie have become close, closer than they ever were before. They take walks on the beach, go antiquing in Manteo, cook elaborate dinners that take all day and taste like heaven. My brother William came for Christmas, first time in 8 years. Jerry had driven a wedge between us with lies and insinuations, making William think I didn't want him around. When he learned the truth, he broke down crying on my doorstep. "I should have seen it," he said. "I should have known." I told him what I told everyone. He fooled us all. That was his gift. That was his weapon. We're rebuilding, slowly, but we're rebuilding. Jennifer, Dottie's niece, has become a regular visitor. She brings her kids and they run on the beach with the dogs while we sit and watch. Jennifer calls Dottie every Sunday just to check in, just to say she loves her. Family, real family, the kind Jerry pretended to be but never understood. I started doing something I never expected. I'm telling my story. Not for fame, not for money, but because I realized that what happened to me is happening to thousands of people right now. Elderly men and women being exploited by family members, caregivers, financial advisors, people who trusted the wrong person, people whose own minds are being used against them. I speak at veterans organizations, senior centers, estate planning seminars. I tell them my story, the anonymous letter, the poisoned trust, the investigation, the takedown. I tell them the warning signs I missed, the red flags I ignored, the questions I should have asked. And every single time, someone comes up to me afterwards. Sometimes they're crying, sometimes they're angry, sometimes they just nod and say, "That's happening to my mother, or my father, or my grandmother, or me." I give them my card. I give them resources. I tell them they're not alone. I wrote a guide, 50 pages, protecting yourself and your loved ones from financial exploitation.
I give it away for free at every event. I've printed thousands of copies. I'll print thousands more. If even one person reads it and sees what I didn't see in time, then every sleepless night was worth it. Dottie and I established a scholarship fund at West Virginia University, my alma mater, the place I never got to attend because I enlisted instead. The scholarship is for first-generation college students from coal country, kids like I was, kids who need a chance. We funded it with the money we recovered from Jerry. Every dollar he stole is now going to help young people build better lives.
I like to think that's justice too. Last month, I got a letter. No return address, postmarked from Virginia. For a moment, my heart stopped. Memories of another anonymous letter, another warning. But this one was different. Dear Mr. Hartwell, it read, you don't know me, but I was at your retirement party. I watched what you did, how you gathered the evidence, how you stayed calm, how you protected your wife. I'm 70 years old. My daughter has been stealing from me for 3 years. I didn't know what to do. I didn't think anyone would believe me. But after seeing you, I called a lawyer. I called the police. I fought back. And last week, she was arrested. I wanted you to know. You saved me. Thank you. There was no signature. I sat on my deck for a long time, holding that letter, watching the waves. 70 years old, 3 years of theft, and she fought back because she saw me do it first. That's legacy. Not the money, not the career, not the medals or the commendations. That letter, that woman, that fight. Dottie found me there an hour later. Ray, what's wrong? I handed her the letter. She read it slowly, her lips moving slightly. When she finished, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. You did that, she said. We did that, I corrected. I couldn't have done any of it without you. She sat beside me, took my hand. I know I don't always remember things, she said quietly. I know there are days when I forget conversations, forget names, forget what year it is. But I want you to know something, Ray. I never forget that I love you, not for one single second. That part of me is still here. It always will be. I squeezed her hand. That's all I need, I said. That's all I've ever needed. The sun was setting over the ocean, orange and pink and gold, painting the water like a masterpiece. The dogs were sleeping at our feet. The air smelled like salt and possibility. I thought about the kid from West Virginia, the scared teenager who enlisted in the army because he didn't know what else to do. I thought about the operations, the deployments, the decades of secrets and shadows. I thought about building a company from nothing, about selling it for more money than my father made in his entire life. And I thought about Jerry, about the nephew who was supposed to be family, about the betrayal that almost destroyed everything. But it didn't destroy us. We're still here. Dottie and I, Patton and Bradley, the beach house, the sunrises, the life we built together. Jerry is in a cell somewhere counting the years until he can see daylight again. Victor Slade is doing the same. The shell companies are dissolved, the money is home, the truth is out. And I, Raymond Hartwell, Colonel, United States Army retired, am sitting on my deck with the love of my life, watching the sun go down and feeling something I wasn't sure I'd ever feel again. Peace. Not victory, not triumph, not revenge. Peace. The kind that comes from knowing you did the right thing, from knowing you protected the people you love, from knowing that when they tried to break you, you bent, but you didn't shatter. I'm 73 years old. I've lived more life than most people could imagine. I've seen the worst of humanity and the best. And if I've learned anything, one thing, it's this. Never underestimate an old soldier. We may be gray, we may be slow, we may forget names and need reading glasses and take a little longer to get out of bed in the morning. But we don't quit, we don't surrender, and we don't let the people we love fight alone. Jerry learned that the hard way. Anyone else thinking about trying the same thing? You've been warned. So let me ask you, was I right to do what I did, or would you have handled it differently? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story hit close to home, like the video, subscribe to John Vengeance, and tap that notification bell so you never miss when justice gets served. Stay fierce, because every story deserves its moment of sweet revenge.